Hello, listener. Settle in, breathe with the rhythm of the sea, and allow this story to carry you gently toward sleep. Somewhere beyond the clocks and the crowded streets, where the pavement ends and the wild grass grows, there's a shore where the tide whispers secrets to those who will listen closely. It was here that a young girl named Alara would come to sit whenever her heart was heavy or her dreams felt lost at sea. And as the waves crashed upon the sand, she would find solace in their ancient song. One evening, as the sun began its slow descent into the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Alara sat upon her usual stone. The air was filled with the scent of salt and seaweed, and the rhythmic roar of the ocean was a constant lullaby. As the first stars twinkled above her, she closed her eyes and whispered her worries into the wind, hoping the tide would carry them away. Suddenly, she heard a voice. It wasn't the voice of the sea, but something new and ethereal, like the chime of a distant seashell. Startled, Alara opened her eyes and looked around, but saw nothing in the gathering darkness. Then the voice spoke again, closer this time, and Alara's heart skipped a beat. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. The voice laughed, a sound like pebbles dancing on the shore, and replied, "I am the tide child of the whispering shore. I have been waiting for you." Alara couldn't believe her ears. Was she going mad? Was this some trick of the fading light and the restless sea? Yet the voice seemed to echo within her very soul, and she couldn't help but feel drawn to it. With a deep breath, she asked, "How can you speak?" The voice chuckled, a melody that seemed to rise from the depths of the ocean itself. "I speak in the language of the waves, in the rhythm of the crashing foam. If you have ears to hear and a heart to understand, I will tell you tales that are older than time." Alara's fear had vanished, replaced by an insatiable curiosity. She leaned closer to the water, eager to hear what secrets the tide held. "Tell me," she whispered. "What stories do you have for me?" The tide surged forward, lapping at her feet, and began to weave a tale. "Once upon a time," it said, "before the sands of time had run their course, when the stars were young and the moon knew not its phases, there lived a mermaid in these very waters." Alara gasped. She had heard tales of mermaids, creatures of myth and legend, yet never believed their stories true. Could the tide be telling her of one such creature? "Her name was Lila S.A. Ida," the tide continued, its voice echoing with an otherworldly beauty. "And she was the most enchanting creature that ever graced these shores. Scales shimmered like 1,000 sunsets, and her laughter echoed the music of the spheres." Lara's eyes widened as she listened, captivated by the mermaid's tale. The tide painted a vivid picture of Lila Sayada's world, a realm where coral castles gleamed with bioluminescence and where playful dolphins danced among the kelp forests. The young girl had never imagined such magic existed beneath the waves. One day, the tide revealed, a handsome prince from a distant land sailed these very seas. He had heard rumors of the beautiful mermaid, and his heart was filled with longing to see her for himself. As he approached the shore, the tide would part just enough for him to catch a glimpse of Lila playing in the shallows. But when he ventured too close, hoping to get a better view, the tide would rush back, hiding her from his sight. The prince, determined to find the elusive mermaid, built a tower on the highest cliff overlooking the sea. Day after day, he waited patiently, hoping for another chance to catch a glimpse of her. But each time he thought he had seen her, the tide would turn, mocking his efforts and keeping the mermaid hidden. Alara felt a pang of sympathy for the prince. How frustrating it must have been to come so close yet never actually see the mermaid. What would she do if she were in his shoes? The tide seemed to sense Alara's thoughts and shifted its tone. "You may think," it said, "that the prince was foolish to pursue a creature of myth and legend, but his heart was as true as the North Star, and his love for Lila knew no bounds." The tide paused, allowing Alara to absorb the weight of the story. Then it continued. One night, as the moon bathed the sea in its silvery glow, the prince decided to make one last attempt to see the mermaid. He climbed onto his boat and sailed out into the darkness, following the faint strains of music that seemed to drift across the waves. The tide churned and tossed, but he pressed on, his determination fueled by love and hope. As dawn broke, the prince found himself on a small, uninhabited island. And there, basking on a rock, was Lila. The mermaid had heard the prince's music, and her curiosity had gotten the better of her. She had followed the sound and found herself drawn to the prince's unwavering devotion. When they saw each other, both the prince and the mermaid froze. The prince, stunned by the realization that the mythical creature he had sought so long was real, and Lila, amazed by the courage and determination of the human who had braved the treacherous seas to find her. The tide swelled and whispered in that moment. The prince realized that the tales of Lila's beauty were but a pale reflection of her true radiance, and the mermaid knew that she had found a love that transcended the boundaries of their different worlds. Ilara listened, mesmerized by the tale of star-crossed love between the human and the mermaid. She understood their longing, their yearning for something beyond their grasp. In Lila and the prince, she saw a reflection of her own dreams and aspirations. But then, as quickly as it had begun, the story ended. The tide receded, leaving Ilara sitting on the shore in silence. The stars twinkled above her, and the gentle rocking of the waves seemed to echo the bittersweet melody of the tale. Ilara felt a tear roll down her cheek. She had become so engrossed in the story that she had forgotten about her own problems. The worries and fears that had brought her to the shore seemed insignificant compared to the epic tale of love and loss she had just heard. As the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon, chasing away the darkness of the night, Ilara rose from her stone. The tide was receding now, revealing more of the sand and pebbles beneath. And as she walked home, she couldn't help but wonder about the fate of Lila and the prince. Had they been able to bridge the gap between their worlds? Had their love endured the test of time? Or had the mermaid eventually returned to the sea, leaving the prince with only memories of a love that could never be? These questions echoed in Ilara's mind as she went about her day. The whispers of the tide had stirred something deep within her, a longing for adventure, for a love that defied all odds. That evening, as the sun began its slow descent and the stars peeked through the darkening sky, Ilara returned to the shore. She sat on her stone, and as the waves crashed upon the sand, she pondered the tale of Lila. The tide rumbled softly, as if sharing in her thoughts, and Ilara felt a sense of peace wash over her. The worries and fears that had troubled her before seemed trivial now, lost in the vastness of the ocean and the immensity of the stars. As the moonlight bathed the shore in its ethereal glow, Ilara stood up, ready to face the night and whatever adventures it might bring. The tide was ebbing now, revealing more of the sand and pebbles beneath, and as she walked home, she couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism. The story of Lila had reminded her of the power of love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the magic that lies within the everyday. Lila, whose name means night in Arabic, had shown her that even in the darkest of nights, there is always hope for a new dawn. And as Ilara drifted off to sleep that night, she dreamed of mermaids and princes, of love that conquers all, and adventures that await. For the whispers of the tide had carried her away on a journey of imagination and wonder, a journey that had reminded her of the beauty and mystery of the world and the endless possibilities that lie within her own heart. Lila, have a peaceful night.